Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. Dr. Shook here. And what I want to talk to you about is another pattern of thyroid dysfunction that can result in hypothyroid feelings. So you don't have proper thyroid hormone stimulation of the cells, resulting in you feeling hypothyroid even though your labs look normal. Okay? So this is number 6 of 6 common patterns that I see in practice. And this particular pattern is thyroid resistance. Okay? So let's just go through the physiology, how it works, and let's talk about where it's breaking down. Okay? So the way it works is that your brain begins the entire process of producing thyroid hormone. So the central structure in the brain called the hypothalamus makes thyroid releasing hormone. The thyroid releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary gland, also a brain structure right behind your forehead. The pituitary gland then is stimulated by the TRH to make TSH. So the pituitary makes TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Now that's the most commonly checked hormone that doctors will order and use to try and determine if you have adequate thyroid hormone levels or not. It's an indirect measure. They use that because they're depending upon the brain and the brain's ability to sense the need for more quantity of hormone here. Okay, so when it works, hypothalamus makes TRH. The TRH stimulates the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland makes thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. The TSH, what it does is it stimulates the production of T4 and T3 by the thyroid. So the thyroid pumps out T4 and T3. 93% of your hormone that comes from the gland is T4. 7% is T3. Okay? So this T4 is not really physiologically active. It's very weak. T3 is very strongly physiologically active. That's actually what we want more of. So what happens is that the T4 is taken to the liver and the GI tract, and it's converted from T4 into T3. Now, the majority of this T4 is going to be converted in the liver. About 20% is going to be converted in the GI tract, and a smaller percentage is going to be converted in peripheral tissues, like the heart can convert it itself. Okay? So, this T4 conversion occurs primarily in the liver, then the T3, which is what we want to stimulate the physiology of the cells and give us the benefits of thyroid hormone, is put into the bloodstream. When it's in the bloodstream, it hitches a little ride on these blue things here, which are called thyroid binding globulins. The little proteins in the blood that the thyroid hormone can attach to and be transported through the bloodstream and then dropped off when they're needed by a cell for use. So as long as the T3 or the T4, whatever, is bound to a protein, it can't be used by the cells of the body. It has to be dropped off and made into free floating T3. Okay, not bound T3, but free floating. So the free floating T3 then stimulates the cell. It goes into the cell, attaches to the DNA, and stimulates a proteomic response or a cellular response. It gives us our metabolism and all the benefits. So this is how it should work. Now in this pattern, it's thyroid resistance. So in this pattern, what you'll see is that everything looks fine. The entire physiological process looks fine. But the cell is unable to use the hormone that's around it. See, everything's in balance. You got balanced the free hormone's balanced, the bound hormone's balanced. Everything looks good. If you look at the labs, TSH is normal, T4 is normal, T3 uptake normal, free T3 is normal. If you looked at total T3, if you looked at reverse T3, if you looked at the thyroid index, they all would be normal. If you looked at, you could even have, you don't have to have Hashimoto's. You can have negative antibodies. Everything can be normal, but you still have resistance. So why? What causes that? How do you know, right? Well, here's what causes it. These are the 3 things: cortisol, cytokines, and inflammation. So let me explain what that is, because I know you probably don't realize, you might not know what cytokines are, and let me just explain these. So what happens is that elevations in cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone, okay? If you're under a lot of stress, whether it be emotional stress, whether it be physical pain, or whether it be chemical stress, what it will do is that stress the brain will signal and drive production of cortisol by the adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys. Elevated cortisol creates resistance so that the thyroid hormone cannot stimulate the cell appropriately. So you can have, everything can be completely normal, but elevations in cortisol can create this resistance. Okay? So what would you do for that? Well, you would address whatever's driving up the cortisol. So if it's inflammation, you would seek out, you would try to determine the source of the inflammation so that you can decrease the inflammatory load and its production of cortisol, so that you're not producing as much cortisol. You can balance the cortisol. If it's physical pain, can you reduce the physical pain? If it is emotional stress, can you decrease the emotional stress or help the person identify ways to better cope with it, like exercise, deep breathing, meditation, prayer, a lot of different things. I mean, if they can do it, obviously, even body work types of things like massage, chiropractic, acupuncture. A lot of these different things are all relative and they're relevant to helping decrease the stress response. So the stress response and decreasing cortisol and normalizing cortisol is really important to improve this pattern, to improve sensitivity of the cell to the hormones. If you don't, then you can have this resistance to the cells and you still feel hypothyroid. The point here is that everything in the body is connected, and that understanding some of these relationships can be very, very beneficial to help you understand and let you kind of get some insight into the fact that trust your body. Trust the fact that if you don't feel well, you don't feel well. Believe in yourself. If your doctors don't understand it, as long as they're not condescending in their approach, and as long as they respect you and what you tell them, then they're doing the best that they can for you. Okay? I mean, that's the thing. But cortisol will create cellular receptor resistance. Cytokines. Now, cytokines are chemical messengers produced by the immune system. And cytokines, one of the things, I talk about them a lot of times, and we refer to them as these inflammatory chemicals, but they're not necessarily inflammatory. They're just chemical messengers. Some of them can promote inflammation. Some of them can dampen inflammation. But cytokines, you'll see cytokine load increase with autoimmunity. So if someone is autoimmune, if they have Hashimoto's or they have another autoimmune process, they typically, if the autoimmunity has not been investigated, the drivers of the autoimmunity have not been investigated and have not been, the person has not implemented a strategy to reduce the things that are triggering the immune process, then they're likely going to have a high cytokine load. They're going to have a high amount of these cytokines, which will do the same thing, but decrease the sensitivity of the cell to the hormone, and you won't have the proper proteomic response or stimulation of the cell, and you'll feel hypothyroid even though everything's normal, right? Everything looks normal. Everything looks normal. So believe yourself if you don't feel well, right? Believe yourself. Now, inflammation, on the other hand, the third thing. When I'm talking about inflammation here, I'm really talking about homocysteine. Homocysteine it's a byproduct of normal metabolism, but it needs to be metabolized and broken down properly. And if homocysteine levels elevate, it can really be a risk factor for a lot of other problems like neurodegenerative conditions, brain-based. It's associated with a lot of potential problems like cardiovascular disease. It's just an inflammatory chemical that you do not want to be significantly elevated. Now, with homocysteine, if homocysteine is elevated, it decreases the cell's sensitivity. So, now that you know these things that create thyroid hormone receptor resistance, what if you had all three of these happening at once? What if you were under stress and had high cortisol? What if you were autoimmune and had high cytokines? What if you had an MTHFR genetic mutation called a SNP, MTHFR SNP, and you couldn't convert your B vitamins into an active form that helps you break down homocysteine, and you had higher homocysteine, higher cytokines, higher cortisol, creating major resistance here, and nothing was abnormal. Who's going to find that? Who's going to find that? Very few people find that. Very, very few doctors find that. In the traditional model, this is not taught that much. It is not a focus of practice. They're dealing with a lot of other serious conditions. But unfortunately, a lot of people have this thyroid resistance, this pattern, and they look completely normal. And a lot of times these might be people that could be potentially given or recommended that they take an antidepressant that may not be appropriate, but the doctor's just trying to help you figure something out. Or sometimes someone they might say, well, you look like you're hypothyroid. I'm just trying to help. Maybe you take a small dose of thyroid hormone and see if it makes you feel better. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they feel better for a while, but after the honeymoon period's gone, see thyroid hormones when you initially start taking them, they have an anti-inflammatory effect. But that wears off after a month or so. So then they say, I felt great taking it, and then I don't feel well. And it's because some of these mechanisms have not been identified, right? So that's why we check inflammatory markers. It's why we get cortisol testing done for a full day, not just a single blood draw to look at it at one point in time. We look at cortisol. Cytokines, we just know if the autoimmunity is not dampened or regulated, then we're going to have a very good likelihood of having high cytokines. So imagine if all this is going on, you're having these problems. And have you seen any of my other videos? If you haven't, look at the other videos where I go through these common 6 patterns that I'll see in practice. If you haven't seen those other videos, any of these problems can be overlapped upon one another. You can have all these issues, plus you might be taking a birth control. You might be taking birth control or hormone replacement that can cause you to have too many of these little carrier proteins, making less thyroid hormone available for the cell to use, further perpetuating and driving this whole process. You can have so many. Maybe you have an impaired ability to convert T4 to T3, but you have way too many of these hormones. So you just have this soup of problems, this web of dysfunction. It's why you cannot just look at the labs alone. It's why you have to look at a very detailed health history. You have to look at the labs. You have to say, does this make sense? Based on all these physiological processes and patterns, where do we start helping this person? And it's why you can see things like inflammation, like infections, like dampening autoimmunity by looking at partially digested food proteins that can trigger the immune response, looking for chronic infections that can trigger an immune response and autoimmunity, looking for environmental chemicals that can trigger an immune response and autoimmunity. All of these things, looking at genetics that can potentially cause problems. We have SNPs. And then, looking at the stress the person's under, measuring cortisol, looking at sex hormones. It's why everything is relevant, because it's all connected. Okay? So I hope you guys have learned a lot from this. This is actually the 6th video of a series of videos that I'm working on and presentations that I've made to you guys. I just hope that this is helpful. I hope this helps to empower you. Remember, become your own advocate, become educated, work on helping yourself, be a better partner with your doctor. Try not to be adversarial. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's hard to work with someone that's constantly fighting you or trying to completely dictate care. I have patients that want to dictate their care, and it's cool to be a partner, right? And that's what I want. I expect a partner. I'm not going to dictate care to you. I'm not going to have you dictate what you want to me, but I'm definitely open to hearing anything that you have as suggestions and being, very open to working with you on your ideas. The thing is, you've got to be your own advocate. You've got to take your health you got to take some responsibility for your health care. So I hope this has helped you guys out a lot. I really appreciate you. Please share this information with people so that they can learn more about their health, so that they can learn more about their thyroid, because so many people are suffering with thyroid problems and have no idea that these types of things can be driving the process. So please do share this information with people. If you have any questions, post them below. Let us know. Give us feedback. Remember, we're here to help you if you need help, and I sincerely appreciate you